Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. It is a Tuesday edition where we got an action-packed show, Scott, because we were at the Advent Health Center, and we got a ton of information. We spoke to the defensive coaches, special teams coach Keith Armstrong, information from left to right out the wazoo, found out so much important things for your Buccaneers starting defense this year and a little bit of special teams as well. And we will dive into all of it. First off, my name is Matt Matera, and joined with me is none other than SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, how we doing?
Doing great. We had a chance to talk to Casey Rogers, who is the gentleman right there on your screen, running next to Lori Locust. Didn't have a chance to talk to her today. She's the assistant defensive line coach. But yeah, we talked to Casey Rogers, co-defensive coordinator, defensive line coach. We talked to Larry Foote, who is the new inside linebackers coach, replacing Mike Caldwell, also a co-defensive coordinator. We talked to new outside linebackers coach, Bob Sanders, already one of my personal favorites.
Yeah,
great interview.
Ball coach, yeah.
Yes. And of course, Kevin Ross, the Rock, near and dear to my heart, growing up in Chiefs territory. And he doesn't say a whole bunch, right? He's not the most talkative guy, but I still love that guy because I grew up a Chiefs fan in Kansas City watching him play. So I'm still like a little awestruck that I got to see the Rock, here live in person. And then Nick Rapone, holy smokes. Can we just talk about Nick Rapone for a second? He said, screw the podium. I'm treating this like a damn TED Talk. I'm walking around the stage. I'm looking you in the eye. Matt, I wanted to go play for the guy.
I love Nick Rapone. He's one of my favorite assistant coaches, and I think one of the great things about all of the Bucs assistant coaches is they give a lot of information. I don't know if it's because they don't normally get on the podium as much as, the head coach or the offensive defensive coordinator, but when it was their time to shine, they sung like a canary. And Nick Rapone, I thought, was fantastic. He got straight to the point of this person starting. This is why we brought in this player, and we'll get into all of that.
Right.
But yeah, as it started out, he was walking from side to side on the stage where the podium is, almost like he was hosting his own seminar. Like, here's how you're going to change your life. Positivity, work ethic, regimen, routine, and it goes on and on.
Here's how to be the better you today. Make the change.
To the point where the Bucs PR staff, not the PR staff at PewterReport.com, the Bucs PR staff had to be like, "Hey, Nick, can you go in front of the podium, please? Because we need audio for all the stuff that they were picking up." But all the coaches across the board, I thought, had just revealing information, but not in a way that's speaking negatively about anyone currently on the team. I think there's a lot of things that we learned from this that we can look into for training camp way down the road, but in the more immediate future, Bucs rookie mini camp, OTAs, mandatory mini camp. And I don't know about you, Scott, as fun as the draft was and all the coverage, it was nice to talk about the current Bucs roster, not just potential draft prospects. So overall, I thought it was an awesome time.
No doubt about it. And then, of course, maybe the headliner in Buccaneer fans, he's not the most popular coach, I think, for them, given how special teams has kind of not been so special. But I'm telling you, Keith Armstrong, that man can talk. And we actually had a Pewter Report prop bet, not through my bookie, just a Pewter Report prop bet. What was it, 15 minutes?
It was 15 minutes.
And he hit the over.
He hit the over by a minute. And he almost did make it. J.C. Allen asked one more question.
That's true.
And if he didn't ask that question, so I don't know if he was I don't know if there's some foul play there. But it was a good question. It was a good question.
Probably had a bet on it, right? So he probably wanted to make sure he hit the over. But listen, I mean, I'm just saying for a pure editorial sake, Keith Armstrong, he delivers, man. Like he is a wealth of information. And, I think everybody wants the special teams units to do better. I will say this, though, like you said, they didn't give up a return last year for a touchdown, didn't have a punt blocked, right? They did some things well. When you sit there and say the special teams sucked or the special teams didn't do well, okay, well, which phase of the game are you talking about? Punt return, punt coverage, kickoff return, kickoff coverage, punting,
field goals,
right? Like your punter, right? In terms of did he punt for a good net? Was he knocking him inside the 20, or were they touchbacks? Field goals, like you said, extra points. How did your holder perform? Did he blow a couple of snaps? Your long snapper. There's a lot of phases to special teams. So you can sit there and say special teams, didn't do this. Listen, I'm one of the biggest critics of special teams, but it wasn't like the entire unit did poorly, right? And we did talk about the return game, and that does need a little bit of juice, and we'll have some news there for sure. But speaking of juice, folks, I'm juiced up today, not just because we talked to about 17 different coaches today, but because I've had my Celsius, right? I drink Celsius every day. Matt, you're cracking open a peach vibe. I can tell.
Peach vibe.
Right?
I've been on a peach kick lately, so I'm looking forward to have this right now.
I had the brand new Arctic Vibe, which is it's now in the top 5. It's good. It really is. And so if you want to vibe like us, make sure you check out the new Celsius Arctic Vibe. Tropical vibes, always a favorite of mine, and the peach vibe is an occasional go-to for me when I'm wanting a change up. But no matter which vibe or which flavor Celsius you choose, you're going to get the same thing, which is great taste. You're going to get plenty of energy, and you're going to get no sugar and no preservatives. And that's key, folks, because not only is sugar not that great for you, it will give you a sugar crash later on, which defeats the purpose of the energy drink. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you check out Celsius. Click on those Celsius banner ads on pewterreport.com the next time you're checking out our stories. And we have a bunch of stories to get to here on this podcast that we've written. So we're going to go through some kind of breaking news first, and then we'll dive into some of the other stuff that's coming up. But click on the Celsius banners, or go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, and find out the location of the nearest Celsius vendor near you. Try some. Then once you know the ones you want, go to Amazon and buy them in bulk and save a lot of money. That's the way to do it. They ship them right to you. And speaking of Amazon, it's a great place to go to get the Fast brand protein bars. These are the best tasting protein bars that you are going to try, people. I'm just telling you right now. Make sure that you also buy them this month, because this month, using the promo code 5FASTLANE, that's 5FASTLANE on Amazon, you're going to save $5 off a Fast 12-pack protein bar set on Amazon. And that's good for the white chocolate cookies and cream, or it's good for the salted peanut caramel crunch. Both of those are fantastic. They taste like candy bars. If you've tried other protein bars that taste like sawdust or wood chips or cardboard, try a really good tasting protein bar. And that's the Fast brand protein bars from our friends at Celsius.
Yeah, couldn't thank Celsius enough for their sponsorship. The drinks are amazing because the drinks actually taste like what they're branded to be.
Right.
The bars, I wish I had a bar right now. I have to re-up. I'm out right now, but
you can save $5 right now by doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. I have to get on Amazon and get going with that, because I'm energized as well, especially after hearing these defensive coaches and special teams coaches. God, I don't know if you want to go in order of each coach we spoke to, or maybe some of the biggest things that really stood out.
Let's go with the biggest things first. We've kind of written about a couple of these. We're going to have a story breaking in about 5 minutes on pewterreport.com. But I think the biggest thing is, folks, it's becoming clear. Now, this is going to go a little contradictory to what Jason Light said at his press conference during the draft. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think Ndamukong Suh is coming back. The way that Jason Light said this, and I've got a story up on pewterreport.com, Bucs looking for new leaders to replace Pierre-Paul and Suh. We've long speculated, Matt, that Jason Pierre-Paul, the Bucs are moving on from him. 33 years old. He commanded a big salary. He's got the rotator cuff shoulder surgery that he's just coming off of. Probably can't even pass the physical right now. Yeah. And they've already drafted his replacement in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And I'm going to read to you a quote from Jason Light. This is from Saturday. No, not Saturday. This was from Friday, after he drafted Logan Hall. He was asked at the press conference, well, does Logan Hall, who's going to be playing the 3 technique, is he going to be replacing Ndamukong Suh? Are you not going to bring Suh back because you haven't re-signed him yet? And Jason Light said, and I quote, "No, we're not shutting the door. There are a lot of injuries that happen throughout the year, and we're not putting all of our stock in the guys we have right now. So I wouldn't shut the door." Matt, it sounds to me like Ndamukong Suh is like a backup plan, like a contingency plan in case they need him. Because we asked Casey Rogers today, the defensive coordinator and the defensive line coach, about Suh not being there and Jason Pierre-Paul not being there. And this is what Casey Rogers had to say about who's going to be replacing Suh in terms of a leader in the defensive tackle room. He said inside it would be Vita Vea. He would have to step up and assume that role, which he should. He comes to work every day. He's here and knows what we have to do and get done. Through attrition, Vita should step up into that role up front. We still have two leaders at linebacker, obviously Levante David and Devin White. So it'll be by committee. Those guys will have big shoes to fill. So what are your thoughts, Matt? Are you reading this the same way I am in terms of maybe this team does not necessarily plan on re-signing Ndamukong Suh unless they need him?
I think that's the case. It really looks like that Ndamukong Suh is a break glass in case of emergency type of defensive tackle that they'll sign. It just seems like, again, with the salary cap, with still trying to navigate that, they obviously used a lot of lump sum of their money in free agency in general. They don't want to spend all that money on Ndamukong Suh if they don't necessarily have to, where they can just go in a different direction and still get a veteran defensive tackle, maybe not as talented or as skillful as Ndamukong Suh, but someone that can still make an impact and contribute to this team. I think the most telling part of it was just the fact that it was a conglomerate of coaches and front office members that have talked about Ndamukong Suh's not here. Again, you go from Jason Light to Todd Bowles to hearing from Casey Rogers today as well, too. That's three separate people that are essentially being like, don't ask me about Ndamukong Suh. Don't ask about Ndamukong Suh because he's not here. He's not in the building. And I think on top of that as well, a huge part of that, again, talking to Casey Rogers today, it was a couple things that you asked him, Scott, particularly with Vita Vea. And we all look at Vita Vea as a top-level nose tackle in this league, just a force on the defensive line and a player that plays for all three downs. And you don't always see that with the defensive tackle. A lot of times they'll shift guys in and out depending on their pass rushing skill. But Rogers, for whatever reason, was, I don't want to say harsh, but he was a little tough on Vita Vea, saying that, well, he wants him to be a leader, and that's a good thing. Yeah. But he talked about, too, that they want to increase his snaps and that the amount of sacks that he had last year, 4.5, he told Vita Vea, that's the baseline. That's what it should be. You should be at 8. You should be doubling up on that.
Yeah, exactly. And Vita Vea did make the Pro Bowl last year for the first time. This is what Casey Rogers said about Vita Vea. He was going really good the year before, then he came back for the playoff run, talking about the end of 2020. Then the way he played this past year, he was getting more and more confident as the season went on, still favoring the ankle some and knocking the rust off. But as the season finished, I thought he was playing really well. Now, the thing with him, he's got to, and I'm harping on him, he's the biggest guy in the field, but he's got to play like that all the time. And, you know, that's kind of been a little bit of a thing with Vita Vea. You know, even talking with Jimmy Lake, his coach at Washington, Matt, he's a bit of a gentle giant, and he's got to maybe embrace a little bit more of that warrior mentality. And it's not that he doesn't play hard. It's not that he's not, a dominant player. He is. It's just that I think that he could get a little nastier and a little bit more consistent and a little bit more badass in that level of consistency, being a badass. And I think it's only going to improve his level of play, his physicality, and probably get him more sacks and help his teammates get more sacks at the same time.
I would have thought when Vita Vea lost his tooth in Indy that would have brought up the badassness a little bit. Real quick, here's Casey Rogers talking about Vita Vea today.
future? What do you expect from him in terms of sack production?
Really, I give him a hard time because it's going into my 20th season coaching in this league, and a lot of them spin up front. He's probably the biggest guy that plays third down in the history of the NFL. So the thing is, with 4.5 sacks, with his talent level, it should have easily been 8. So as we went through our cut-up some in the offseason and talking with him, there's some things we got to improve, but 4 should be a baseline of that. He should get more than that because, one, we're leaving him out there on third down, and he has the talent to do it.
You listen
Good
to
stuff.
Yeah, you listen to some of the things he said there. The biggest guy in the history of the NFL to play all 3 downs, essentially, was he was saying. And the talent level that Vita Vea has, that 4 is not enough, which I don't know exactly. Again, because the Bucs defense is way more geared towards Shaq Barrett and hopefully Joe Tryon-Shoyinka really cleaning that up. I still think 8 might be a little bit high for Vita Vea.
I think he's capable of it, though, right?
Agreed. I agree. Yeah, because again, what Casey Rogers said, the talent level, the skill set, I definitely see it in there. But nonetheless, the Bucs are showing, at least the coaching staff showed during these press conferences today, that if Ndamukong isn't here, they're really going to ride the Hulk that is Vita Vea. And he's going to need to step up even more than he already has. And he's already a freak of nature on this defensive line. So let's see what that means, taking it to another level. I think challenging great players was really a theme of talking to the coaches today, whether it was Larry Foote with Devin White, whether it was Nick Rapone and Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yes.
A lot of things this year is going to be challenging this defense.
You're exactly right, Matt. You're spot on. And the thing is what's up with those 3 players? What do they all have in common? Devin White, Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea, they're all Pro Bowlers, right? They're all Pro Bowlers. And the coaches are saying
Pro Bowls.
Exactly. And the coaches are saying, not good enough, right? Like, you can do better. You can get more. You can produce more for this defense. So it's I love that, right? It reminds me of when Mike Tomlin walked in the building in 2001 when he replaced Herm Edwards as the defensive backs coach. Now, this is Mike Tomlin coming from the college ranks. I think he was at William and Mary or Cincinnati as defensive backs coach. And he comes in and he gives John Lynch a list of things. It's just as John Lynch, perennial Pro Bowl strong safety for the Bucs, gives him a list of things to do that's like a mile long to make him better. And I'll never forget Warren stopped telling me the story. John Lynch comes in and he's mad, like he got stung by hornets or something. He comes in the locker room. He's like, Sap, get a load of this crap, man. This new coach, he's got a laundry list of things for me to do to improve. And Sap starts laughing. He says, well, Johnny boy, you better get to work. And the thing is Mike Tomlin came in and he demanded better from his better players. And that was 2001. What happened in 2002? 2002, the Bucs won the Super Bowl for the first time. They set a franchise record, Matt, with 31 interceptions, 31 to lead the league. 21 of those came from the secondary, which was an all-time high. That's more picks than the Bucs had across the board last year. But that's what great coaches do, is they push great players to the level of excellence.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching a documentary too, I think, about the initial Buccaneers team that won, or maybe you were telling me a story about it. One or the other. I watched documentary, and I hear a lot of stories from you because you tell so many great stories about covering the Bucs back in the day, especially that first Super Bowl winning team. And one of the things that came up really was, obviously, this defense was so good, and I think it was that playoff game the year before against the Rams where they shut down the greatest show on turf, but they still lost the game. Whatever the score was, it was very low scoring.
Yeah, it was like 11-6 or something, 11-5.
Yeah, exactly. And Derek Brooks essentially was like, well, what else can we do? Like, we shut them down as much as we can. And then another coach, maybe his assistant coach, was like, well, now you got to score touchdowns. Now you got to go out and do that.
Yeah, that was actually John Gruden. Yeah. So, John Gruden says, you think you're a great defense. Great defense to score touchdowns. And I'm challenging you guys to score 9 touchdowns.
Like, that was just, touchdowns. And that was the iteration. That was the crazy part too. Again, just watching like the documentary when they go from game to game, every single game, it felt like they scored a touchdown. It's like unbelievable. You would never see that in today's NFL, just the way the offense is now. But you fast forward to this year's team, only 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. But I think everyone on defense would probably agree that they didn't play up to their standards. Like, sure, they beat up against the bad teams when they played the Bears and when they played the Dolphins. Everyone got their stats. Everyone got their interceptions. They played the Falcons. Mike Edwards gets the 2 pick sixes. They beat up on the bad teams. But you know what? That's what good teams do.
That's right.
But the defense didn't show up when they had those big games. That's why they lost to the Rams twice. That just when they really needed it from the defense, I think they would agree that they didn't live up to the level of standards that they set for themselves. Because, of course, this is a very talented defense. So I think they had a little bit of a look in the mirror type of moment there. And it's on the coaches, too. They're challenging them.
Sure it is. And especially too with these defensive coaches we spoke to today, you can tell that Rams game that's still hot for them, right? That taste is not going to get out of their mouth anytime soon until September. Until they kick off week 1, they're going to have the memory that they were on the field, the defense, when they lost that game, and that's a brutal feeling, and that's great. And, and the thing is I remember, again, when Mike Tomlin came into Tampa in 2001, the first thing he said was, we're going to stop celebrating pass breakups. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, you want to high five your teammates and stuff when you get a pass breakup. A pass breakup is a dropped interception. So we want interceptions. We don't want pass breakups, right? And it's raising the bar. And so to hear today, right, Nick Rapone raising the bar for Antoine Winfield. How many interceptions does he want from Winfield? I will 6 or 7, right?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the video to download. But yes, I have that video of Rapone talking about that. Yeah, he wants Antoine Winfield Jr. to get 6 or 7. I think it was very telling as well when Kevin Ross was like, I asked Kevin Ross, how far away is Carlton Davis from being an all-pro cornerback? And he said, he's not far away. He's just got to catch those damn interceptions. He dropped so many. That's how close Carlton Davis is.
Yeah. And I think that again, when you're talking about, we're not talking about the semi-stars. We're not, in no disrespect to guys like Raheem Nunez-Roches, right? No disrespect to Sean Murphy-Bunting. But when we're talking about the team's better players, Carlton Davis, who just cashed in on a rich deal worth, between $14 and $15 million a season. When we're talking about Vita Vea, just cashed in on a $17.75 million per year extension. When we're talking about Devin White and Antoine Winfield, Pro Bowlers, right, who are still on the rookie deals. But I like what Coach Larry Foote had to say about Devin White. He said a multitude of things about White. One of them was that he was actually bringing up the contract.
Yeah.
Devin White's in a contract year, and he wanted to motivate him.
Let me play the video right now. Here's Larry Foote talking about Devin White, who, yes, is in a contract year.
Get him back on track. I know we made a Pro Bowl last year, but there were some games where he wasn't quite Devin White.
Well, it's NBA playoffs, so a lot of times in basketball, you're here, let the game come to you. As playing linebacker, sometimes you want to make more plays, and that get you in trouble sometimes. You just got to calm down and always remind you got the goods. He's not a slow linebacker like I was, where he's gonna make his plays. He just got to trust the defense, and sometimes he might have a quiet game. It might be a couple games, but you got to stick to the process, and he's gonna make his plays. You stay healthy and play 17 games, you're gonna make a ton of plays. Well, I can give him the coach standpoint, and I can give him an ex-player standpoint for, contract is coming up. That's always good. Whatever you got to do to motivate him, but I done threw that in his ear a little bit. You see the salary cap and stuff like that and what linebackers getting, so I throw that in his ear a little bit. Sure. But, you want to keep getting better. And he is a guy that want to go down and be great. He want to get a gold jacket one day. And the physical tools are there, so he got to do it upstairs.
Is film a big part of that? Is learning how to watch film, what you're watching, not just watching it, but actually understanding?
Absolutely, and I'm putting. I tell these young guys, you got to focus too. That's a muscle. that's a muscle that you got to keep getting stronger and stronger. So, you know, we live in a world of social media. I got to give them guys breaks, but them guys, if you focus the longer, you're gonna make that play. It's a game of inches.
That's good stuff.
Larry Foote does not like social media or the youngins.
He's old school, man.
He's very, very old school. But I actually think that's a little bit what Devin White needs. He needs that old school. He doesn't need. Devin White's got the flashiness. He's got, you know, he's definitely got swag, and people love Devin White. I like Devin White too. The hashtag #GetLive45 is great, but sometimes you need to dial that back a little bit. And you heard Larry Foote say that. He said sometimes he just needs to calm down, let the play come to him. I think one of our knocks on him was that he's a little too bull in the china shop, running around all over the place, crashing into his own players. So calm down, let the game come to you, and the stats will be there. Larry Foote talked about how off-ball linebackers, you don't need 9-10 sacks. Sure, he had it 2 years ago.
Right,
but
that's not the norm.
That's an exception to the rule. But you can still be a star player, a Pro Bowl, hopefully eventually an All-Pro, and and still have 3 or 4 sacks and still be a severely important player to this defense. It's just about doing it the right way with Devin White and not overdoing it.
And you know what? Sometimes, and I've seen it. I've seen it with certain position coaches, how they just develop a rapport with the players. They kind of start speaking the same language, right? And like Rod Marinelli and Warren Sapp, 2 completely different dudes, but man, on the field, on the grass, they were in sync. They just were. And I think it's the same way with Raheem Morris and Rondé Barber, for example, right? When not that it wasn't Mike Tomlin, but I mean, Rondé and Raheem were almost like best friends, which was kind of bad once Raheem took over as head coach. But the thing is I think that because Larry Foote is a very energetic, edgy guy, and listen, Larry Foote would have been the defensive coordinator. Todd Bowles would have moved on. You would have seen Larry Foote become the defensive coordinators. Casey Rogers would have gone with Todd Bowles to wherever Bowles became the head coach. That didn't happen. But Larry Foote was poised to be the defensive coordinator here. Jason Light loves him. Bruce Arians loves him. And he's an edgy guy. He brings the fire. He still coaches like a player. Like, he wants to kick your ass. He wants to go out there and chirp on the field. And I think that's why Bowles loves him too. But the thing with Larry Foote is I think he can really reach Devin White. And I think they kind of speak the same language. Nothing against Mike Caldwell. Mike Caldwell was more of a cerebral kind of guy. And I'm not saying that Larry Foote isn't. And I'm not saying that Devin White isn't. It's just he was more of like that thinking man's kind of guy and was more even-keeled. And that's fine. But just like how Dungy was very like calm and passive and even-keeled, which served the Bucs well, John Gruden really brought the fire and the energy, which also served the Bucs well. You know, you didn't have the lows with Dungy that you did with Gruden, because Gruden was like a roller coaster. It was high. The highs were high. The lows were low. But Gruden just had that energy. And like I've always told people, when Gruden was coaching and the train got off the track, it wasn't going to get back on. But when the train was on the track, Gruden, you wanted him to be the conductor, because 12-4, 11-5, like that's what he would deliver. With Dungy, there were plenty of times where the Bucs had to win like 3 out of 4 games in December to get the 9 or 10 wins to make the playoffs, and they did, because Dungy could do that. I think with Larry Foote, I think he can reach Devin White, really communicate with him, and really bring out the best in Devin White and stop some of the mistakes that got in Devin's way and got in the Bucs defensive way down the stretch.
I just love that Larry Foote is going to be bluntly honest with Devin White in good ways and bad ways. And exactly what he said right there, where he's like, yeah, I'm going to let Devin White know he's in the last year of his contract. And, if you play well, what linebackers are getting paid now, you're going to get a very high contract. That's blunt honesty. And that's great for Devin White. Do you think the Bucs front office want Larry Foote being like, hey, you're going to get a huge contract if this goes on? I mean, sure, they want Devin White to play well, and at the end of the day, if you're worth your money, they'll absolutely pay you. But I'm sure also they're probably like, hey, man, like, we're going to have to negotiate with him in a year from now. Let's maybe not automatically put this in his head that all of a sudden he's going to become the highest paid linebacker of all time. But nonetheless, it's motivation. It's telling it like it is.
Right.
And it's trying to make the player better already in May.
And you know what? The biggest thing, I think you'll agree with me, is Devin White has to be more disciplined, right?
Yes.
And so, what discipline is like we've probably seen the psychology videos, right, of the little kids with like the little bowl of donuts, right? And the instructor, whoever says, okay, I'm going to be back in a couple of minutes. Don't eat the donuts until I come back, right? And then the adult leaves the room and the kids look at the donuts like, oh my gosh, there's donuts. What am I going to do? Am I going to wait? Right. And it's just kind of like it's testing the discipline. And I think that with Larry Foote, what we heard about Devin White is he wants Devin White to be more restrained and let the plays come to him. Right. But at the same time, he's like, you got to go make the plays because the Pro Bowlers and the guys that cash in on the money are the playmakers. Right. So it's knowing when to make the play. And I think that's the one thing that the real special linebackers like Lavonte David have known. And I think I hope it's something that Devin White can learn is there's a time to make your play and there's a time to not miss your assignment trying to make the play. And that's one of the things that the coaches talked about today. To your point, Matt, the defense didn't play as well as it did in 2020 because there were so many missed assignments, missed sacks, missed run fits, and things like that.
Right. I think Devin a little bit too much just he wanted to make the SportsCenter top 10 play almost all the time, and that's where we ran into the issues where he missed his gaps. And if Lavonte David wasn't playing, it really became too much of an issue because Lavonte wasn't there to really, clean up the mess and
rein him in a little bit.
And bring everything in together. But I would say across the board too. It wasn't just Devin White with some issues. There was communication issues, that went all the way to the last play of their season, essentially, when Cooper Kupp got open down the field against the Rams. So, and I think that was another thing too. I believe it was Casey Rogers talking about it. Like, where does his defense need to get better? Where does it need to improve? And he pretty much just said, it's the fundamentals. It's like the simple things.
Yeah.
And those are things that can get cleaned up. And those are parts of the game that the Bucs shouldn't be messing up at this point. With the talent, I truly believe, and we've said this before in the past, and maybe it was towards the offense more, where it's all about Bucs beating Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
We speak about that on the offense a lot because it comes down to turnovers. But I think in this case, it really adheres to the defense. I mean, we talk about Shaq Barrett. As much as we love him, he jumps off sides like all the time. I know he's trying to get a quick step, but there's a lot of offsides penalties by the defensive line, probably more than we've seen in recent years. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I understand he's a rookie. A lot of missed
sacks. But Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, right?
A lot of missed sacks there. Carlton Davis dropping the interceptions like we talked about. These are fundamental things. And Carlton, it wasn't like these were low throws that he had to dive and he almost came up with it. Some of them were right at him. So it's just little fundamental things that luckily the Bucs can change. They can improve and get better at this, but they have to. All right. It's one thing to talk about it. Now you have to put it together and really show it.
That's right. And the thing too is we talked about Ndamukong Suh probably not coming back. Jason Pierre-Paul, we've kind of known that all along. And really what we heard the coaches talk about today, both Bob Sanders and also Casey Rogers, is Shaq Barrett really needs to step up. And the interesting thing is Ndamukong Suh is not like a loud, boisterous, type of guy. He's very plain spoken, but he's very matter of fact. And because of the years that he has in the league and what he's done, people are going to gravitate towards him. They're going to listen, right? And the same thing with Jason Pierre-Paul, who is night and day different from Ndamukong Suh. He is an alpha personality. He is an Energizer bunny. He is electricity running through the sidelines and on the field when he's on the field. And what these coaches are charging the Buccaneers, these two especially, Vita Vea, who's kind of a quiet guy, and also Shaq Barrett, is when you're replacing a guy like Suh and you're replacing a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul, they need these guys to really step up. And I'm of it's going to be interesting because these guys kind of have to go
Agreed.
outside their comfort zone a little bit, right?
Yeah, you know what it is, Scott? If you look at the team last year, and we're talking about leaderships at certain positions, like outside linebacker, JPP and Shaq Barrett. It's kind of a good cop, bad cop situation where Shaq Barrett is the good cop. He's fun-loving. Everyone likes him. He's very easygoing. And JPP is the bad cop. And when I say bad cop, I don't mean like JPP is a bad teammate. I think he's a great teammate. But I could definitely see him trying to get everyone together, other outside linebackers, maybe Anthony Nelson or Cam Gill being like, "Oh crap, like JPP's going to get on me if I don't do this right here. I don't do that
creating that
right
accountability.
Here." Yes, it's the accountability. And I think
Warren Stapp was that way.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the defensive line as well too, while Ndamukong Suh again isn't, very outspoken, he's just, you look at him and you talk to him a little bit and you just see that he's a man that commands that respect, and he's obviously a pretty legendary player here in the NFL. So when you take Vita Vea, who's soft-spoken, always smiling, maybe a little more on the shy side, the good cop, bad cop, Sue's the bad cop in that situation. Again, good teammate just in terms of accountability. Oh, if I'm not doing my job, Ndamukong Suh's going to get on me. Yeah. Now, Shaq Barrett and Vita Vea, in a way, they're going to be a leader, but part of being a leader is holding other people accountable.
Right.
And especially Vita Vea hasn't necessarily been in that situation before. It's not really his fault. It's just, he was a rookie. He came in. There's veteran leadership there.
That's right.
But this is a new role for Shaq Barrett and Vita Vea, but really for Vita Vea, that we've never seen him in that type of light before. I've never even really heard him talk about being a leader on this team, just because, again, of who they've had there. So it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch this year with Vita Vea. I think he can do it. We just haven't really seen it before.
And I hope too, because when you're charged with being a vocal leader, right, you can't slack off, right? All eyes are on you. You can't sit there and slip back into the shadows and, well, I'll be the lieutenant, you be the general, right? And you lead, and I'll kind of do my own thing a little bit, and I'll be the, your hype man and the attaboy man and all that stuff. But the thing is when you're the vocal leader, you got to step your game up. You got to be consistent. You have to, all eyes are on you. And you know what? Whether you want that role or not, when you're getting paid $17 or $17.75 million and you're the Pro Bowl player like Shaq Barrett and Vita Vea are, too bad. when in the real world, like when you get raises, right? It's kind of for two things. It's number one, I'm giving you a raise because of what you did, but I'm also paying you more because I expect more from you, right? So it's kind of like a double whammy. That's how raises and promotions should be. It's, you did this, we're really proud of you, you grew, you helped the company, whatever, and we're going to give you this raise, this promotion, this bonus for what you did. But there's also the expectation of, don't rest on your laurels. We need more from you, and that's why we're giving you more. And I think that's only fair to push Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett maybe out of their comfort zone and to step up and be that leader, not just on the field, but in the huddle and on the sidelines and in the meeting rooms and the practice field.
I absolutely agree, Scott. And another thing I'm trying to, speaking of raising, another thing I'm trying to raise is my bowling score. Oh, and when I do go bowling, I am bowling at Pin Chasers. If you guys know by now, the owner of Pin Chasers, Anthony Peroni, is a huge Bucs fan. He's got season tickets, so I know he's excited for the season and the schedule, which is coming out, I believe, in a little over a week from now. But nonetheless, Pin Chasers, I've talked about this a ton, but it deserves reiterating. It's more than just a bowling alley. It's about having a good night out with your friends. It's about having a great family night. You could have birthday parties for your kids. They got bowling, but they also got the arcade section. I understand young kids, their attention spans are all over the place. Take a little break from bowling, go to the arcade area. They got great food. They bring it right to you. The food is very underrated. You don't even get up from your seat. The waiters
are so good. Like, you wouldn't think that a bowling alley would have good food.
Right.
You think it'd be like acceptable food to snack on. No, it's actually the pizza, the salads, their sandwiches are
chicken
fantastic.
Fingers. Go old schools. There's some chicken fingers and fries. They bring it right to you, so you don't even have to get up. And the great thing too, Scott, is they have deals literally every single night. All you can eat pizza, all you can bowl, Dollar Miller Lights. You look on the weekend, they have brunch and other things going on as well too. So make sure you go to pinchasers.net because they have different deals and they're changing all the time as well too. So make sure that you figure out which night works best for you depending on what you're looking for. So go to pinchasers.net to reserve a lane or book a party and you won't be disappointed. And there's multiple locations as you see on the screen here. So there's a Pinchasers that is going to be near you. That's pinchasers.net.
Yep. And I'll tell you, Matt, I went for a jog last night, and I mean, summer's here, folks. If you're in Florida, I went running like around 6:30, 7 o'clock last night. And a couple weeks ago, it was nice. It was breezy and no humidity. Man, May is here, and it's going to be hot. And it's going to be hot from about now until probably
January.
Into September. And the great thing about bowling at Pinchasers is air-conditioned lanes. Summer's here, and it is the place to go for kids' birthday parties, corporate events, date night, because it's air-conditioned. I'm just going to say that as a Floridian, man.
100%. That you can't take that for granted. Is good AC on a hot summer night in Tampa or really anywhere. But yeah, good AC, cannot take that for granted for sure.
Yep. So the other news, we have a story about Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett kind of taking over, expected to take over the leadership roles for Ndamukong Suh and from Jason Pierre-Paul. And also too, KJ Britt, when we were talking to special teams coach Keith Armstrong, he was really praising the play of KJ Britt and Grant Stewart. And with Kevin Minter not returning, we've heard some good things about Britt as maybe that third linebacker, that initial backup middle linebacker replacement for Devin White. That's the role that Kevin Minter had. He could also replace Levante David too. I think Britt, we'll see if he has the ability to do both. From what I've heard, cerebrally, he's getting the job done. Like he's understanding the defense, mentally. He's communicating it well. It's just physically in training camp, in the preseason. Can he execute it? Does he have enough speed and athleticism to get the job done? But boy, on special teams, Keith Armstrong was singing his praises. He had, I think, 5 tackles on special teams last year, which ranked 4th. Kevin Minter was 3rd with 7. Ross Cockrell was 2nd with 8. And then Grant Stewart, who was their special teams ace, 12 tackles. I got to think, Matt, one of those guys, either Britt or Stewart, could take that captainship role that Kevin Minter has had on special teams the last couple of years.
That's actually what I asked Keith Armstrong about, because I think we're all under the assumption that Kevin Minter probably isn't going to be back this year. But yeah, he was a special teams captain. So someone's going to have to step up into that leadership role in terms of special teams. Like, I don't expect Grant Stewart to be the leader of the linebackers. You got Levante David and Devin White there. But that's why I wanted to ask Keith Armstrong about that. And pretty much his words were, yes, he can definitely see Britt and Grant Stewart stepping into those roles. I think Grant Stewart, it makes sense because he was the stud on special teams last year. But Armstrong, to your point about Britt being more cerebral about linebacker, not even special teams, Armstrong kind of said, yeah, pretty much Britt maybe not as much because he's more focused at linebacker right now. And there might come a time if he earns that linebacker 3 role where he's not going to be playing special teams as much. As good as he was, they need him in that role as the linebacker 3. And I thought and obviously he's going to have to get faster and improve his agility a little bit. Because I think you and I were in agreement. I remember doing just coverage on a podcast about the linebackers, you and I, a couple of months ago. Yeah. But we were just talking about that. We wished that KJ Britt and Grant Stewart, if we combined the physicality and the knowledge of football of KJ Britt and the speed of Grant Stewart, that it would make a great linebacker right there.
Yeah.
And they, I believe it was Larry Foote too, said that KJ Britt is he's all business. He's a no nonsense guy, which you need that at linebacker. So it's interesting to see a guy that was good at special teams last year.
Right.
Not Grant Stewart, but a guy that was still efficient at special teams.
Yeah.
And we saw where the special teams struggled last year too. To take a guy off of that unit because you think he could really be something at linebacker, even if it's linebacker 3.
Right.
That's big praise for KJ Britt.
It is. And we're going to give Jason Light some big praise too, because, the 7th round draft picks. They're I don't want to say they're throwaway picks, but I mean, you're just like throwing darts, man. You're not expecting anything much out of a 7th rounder. And really, until Grant Stewart, Jason Light had not done anything in the 7th round worth really talking about or praising.
Sure.
But Grant Stewart has got the ability. He's got Pro Bowl potential. When you look at Matthew Slater and some of these guys that are just pure special teams demons that can get down there and cover. I mean, I would be shocked if Grant Stewart does not lead this team in special teams tackles again. And he had 12 last year. I think that now he has a year under his belt. He could be one of those guys that literally ends up with 20 special teams tackles a year. And he also forced a fumble. So I think it's interesting because they still have Devin White and Levante David for sure. And I think that we're seeing probably Antoine Winfield becoming that leader in the secondary, at least in the safety room. Carlton Davis is that guy in the cornerback room.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about was the big news. And I think you wrote a story about Nick Rapone, the safeties coach. We finally have some clarity about the roles that Logan Ryan and Keanu Neal. Sorry,
That's good, though.
I had John Wick on the brain. You know,
I've done that in my head too.
Yeah.
Keanu Neal, Keanu Reeves, Logan
Yes.
Hall, Logan Ryan,
John Wick.
I'm getting the names.
Johnny Utah. Point Break.
I'm getting the names bad. Yeah, Point Break. Getting the names mixed up in my head a lot too. But yeah, Nick Rapone was very telling, and I think we've all wanted to know what exactly are we getting with Keanu Neal and Logan Ryan. Are they going to be starting safeties? Are they going to play in the nickel position? Is Mike Edwards slotted to be the starting strong safety when the season starts? So there's a lot of those questions going into it. I'm pulling up Nick Rapone's quotes now, just talking about Keanu Neal and Logan Ryan. And he said, you have two guys that have played in the league and have done a pretty good job of playing in this league. After losing Jordan Whitehead, we just felt we needed to bring somebody in that has played in the league and has had some production. We'll look at Neal at strong safety, and we'll look at Logan at free safety and a little bit of nickel. And he went on to say later, that's what he's talking about Todd Bowles. That's what Todd Bowles wanted to do. Todd wanted to create, so we have some competition there at safety, which makes a healthy group, and they go out and they compete. So,
but the big thing is he said that Mike Edwards is going to be the starter at strong safety.
Absolutely. I got the video of that I will pull up in one moment. I think it's important to point out too, it's going to be Mike Edwards' job to lose, but they're not handing him the job by any means. So here's Nick Rapone. He's talking about the first part of the video is actually what we were talking about earlier about challenging Antoine Winfield Jr. to get more interceptions. The next part is Nick Rapone talking about how much he trusts Mike Edwards and what he needs to see from Mike Edwards in order to earn the starting strong safety position.
Outleaping Michael Pittman in Indianapolis and just
I think
how
Winfield,
he developed.
I think Antoine just gets better and better, but that's the type of kid he is because of his father and his background, he's just a blue collar guy. You know, the one thing with Winfield where I challenged him after this year is run support wise, you're beautiful. You're beautiful in a lot of areas. Let's start getting 6 and 7 interceptions a year. Let's make that the next step where you're going to get 6 or 7 interceptions, because the real good players and the great players love to get challenged. So that's the challenge this year is let's get 6 and 7 interceptions. We know you can blitz. We know you can tackle. We know you can pass defend. Let's get the football a little more.
Coach, what do you need to see from Mike Edwards this year to trust him to be a full-time starter in this defense?
I trust Mike more now. If you look at it, Mike's had 5 interceptions in the last 2 years, probably playing a fourth of the reps a starter would get. So I trust Mike more now. Each safety has some certain areas he has to improve on. And with Michael, it's going to consistently be being able to make that open field tackle. He improved last year. He made more tackles in the open field than he had the year earlier. Ball-wise, Mike can play the football. So Mike just has to keep maturing, and it's going to be a great challenge for him because he'll start off at that strong safety position, and then we'll see what Neil does. And that's what Todd wanted to do. Todd wanted to create, so we have some competition back there at safety. Now, Winfield and Edwards, they're looking at Logan, Ryan, and Neil, which makes a healthy group, and they go out and they compete.
I think this is the corner you got in the 5th round.
Good stuff there, man. That's Nick Rapone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last part of that too, when he's talking about adding in Neil and Ryan, that this is going to make a healthy group at safety, where Neil and Ryan are essentially safety nets in terms of they're not going to necessarily be the starting guys. I still think that they will have a role in this defense and they will contribute. And at some point, they're going to make an impact play. But talking about corners too, it's going to be Sean Bunting's job at the nickel corner, at least to start the season. We'll see if he holds on to it. Yeah. And they're all in on Mike Edwards. And he's a player, you heard Rapone talk about it, where he's making all these interceptions in less than half the amount of playing time that everyone else is getting at the position. So it's about time they trust him. They obviously want him to get better at open field tackling, which I think was an issue even when he first got into the league. And we've seen that become a problem for a couple of guys on this defense, especially in the secondary. But it's good to see. I think with the playmaking ability that Mike Edwards has, and in my opinion, he is a playmaker.
Yes.
Again, remember, he had the interception, 3 interceptions in the regular season is nice. He had the interception against the Eagles as well, too, in the playoffs. So he just makes plays. And I understand sometimes he'll get burned, or it could happen because he gets so
awful
aggressive.
Game against the Rams. I think he played like 15 snaps, and he was in on the touchdown to Cooper Kupp in the first half, and then had another bad play in that game. It's escaping me right now, but just 15 plays, and it was not good film. Yeah. So I do like the fact, though, that, listen, Jason Light and this organization has invested draft picks, premium draft picks, right? Day 2 draft picks, a 2nd rounder in Sean Bunting, a 3rd rounder in Jamel Dean, and a 3rd rounder in Mike Edwards, right, from the 2019 draft class. And they want to see these guys either sink or swim, and they're going to give them the opportunity. Sean Bunting is going to be the starter in the nickel to start things off. And like you said, aptly put, Logan Ryan is the safety net. Nick Rapone said it. He's going to be a free safety. If we need him in nickel corner, then we'll put him in there. In other words, if Sean Bunting sinks and doesn't swim,
I think Scott froze again, unless it's my computer. But I don't know, Scott froze a couple of times yesterday, so I think that might be the situation again here. So I will take over once again. And what I was talking about, and what Scott was talking about too, is that the Bucs are putting all of their chips in with seeing what they're going to get from Sean Bunting in the last year of his deal at the nickel corner. They're going to see if Jamel Dean can really be a solidified number 2 cornerback in this league, lining up against Carlton. They're set with Carlton Davis as the number 1 corner. The same goes for Mike Edwards when it comes to trusting him as the starting strong safety for this team. So there's a couple of guys, as Scott was saying, you're going to either sink or swim. But the thing that I do like the most really is, this is their plan A. Jamel Dean at cornerback number 2, Sean Bunting as the nickel, and Mike Edwards as the starting strong safety.
Right.
But it's not their only plan. Like, if things don't work out, if someone gets injured, it's not just like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? Yeah. We have a plan B, and that's Logan Ryan, and that's Keanu Neal as well, too. Now, if we're talking about plan A, my plan A for food is Beef O'Brady's.
Wings and beer. Beer and wings. Nobody combines them like Beef O'Brady's. Start with their award-winning wings, traditional or boneless, in whatever sauce or dry rub you crave. Next, pick the cold brew that's perfect for you. Beef's has all your faves on tap. It doesn't get any better than that, unless you count all the flat screen TVs playing game after game. Beef O'Brady's, where game time meets beer and wing time all the time. Drink responsibly.
I
Dude.
need to get those wings, and now is the perfect time to get them too, because
it's 5:00, man. It's dinner time.
Well, that too. I was going to say, because it's playoff season. Hockey playoffs just got here. The Lightning have their first game tomorrow.
That's right. After playing the exhibition game last night in Toronto, that didn't count.
They played an exhibition game, traveling internationally. They had to, get their wits about them. So they play their first game tomorrow. You got the NBA playoffs going on as well too. So there's no better spot to go to watch all these games than Beef O'Brady's, because you have the delicious, tasty wings like you see on your screen right there. Awesome burgers, great nachos. On top of that, like I just said, you're watching sports games. They have multiple TVs. They got TVs on TVs on TVs. A great beer selection as well too. If you're
watching the Lightning, you need copious amounts of beer, especially after that shit show last night. Oh my God.
Yeah, but if you want to watch the Lightning or whatever team you root for from the comfort of your own home, you can go and just pick up food. They have takeout food right there for you. You can go pick it up, swing on home, and you know that you're not going to have to travel far to go get some Beef O'Brady's, because there's over 45 locations in the Tampa area. So no matter where you live, there's going to be Beef O'Brady's near you. So make sure you go to beefobradys.com, check out their entire menu, and see what else that they can offer you. Beef O'Brady's, good food, good sports.
Damn right. I'm hungry. Let's end this podcast and let's go get some food, dude. We had a lot of great content today on pewterreport.com. John has I think probably his final farewell column.
Send off.
The Bucs briefing with his draft grades. So make sure you check that out. I'm sure John will be contributing some content sprinkled in throughout football season, etc. So this isn't, as we said the other day on the draft show, this isn't goodbye. It's just see you later. Until we meet again. And we have a couple of stories that we've kind of talked about here, but if you want to read those quotes again, get the in-depth scoop on Ndamukong Suh, JPP probably moving on in the leadership roles that Shaq Barrett and Vita Vea need to step up into, as well as the news about Logan Ryan and Keanu Neal, their roles being specifically defined by Nick Rapone. Check them out at pewterreport.com. And while you're here, before we go, make sure if you're watching this on Pewter Report TV on our YouTube channel, and if you're not, well, go over to it and make sure you hit subscribe, because we want to get up to 9,000. That's our new goal. We're so close to 8,300. We hit 8,000 just before the draft, hit that goal. Mm-hmm. Now we're on the way to 9,000, and we're almost at 8,300. So help us get to that little milestone, and we'll be, as Bill Belichick would say, we're on to 9,000. Right. And also when you're at Pewter Report TV and you're watching either the live Pewter Report podcast or our podcast versions, the taped versions, make sure you're hitting the like button. Get the thumbs up on all of our Pewter Report content. What that does, it helps our algorithms, puts us in front of more Pewter people like you, and we love Pewter people. So the more people that see our content, that's going to be a direct correlation from you hitting the like button. So we're all in this together, Pewter people. Help the Pewter Report TV channel grow, hitting the like button and subscribe.
Yes, please help our algorithm so that way we can put on the best show that you possibly want. Just want to give a shout out to Lawrence Lowe. Thank you for the $2 super chat. I don't really understand your comment. Jameis with no pressure throws an INT to Tyreek Hill. But nonetheless, thank you very much for the super chat. If you super chat us, we will make sure that we get to the comment, whether it's with the conversation or not.
We should probably touch on this really quickly, because Keith Armstrong did talk for 15 minutes, and we kind of shortchanged special teams, but they're really not that special. He did talk about the punter, Jake Camarda, and like the fact that he was a baseball player and a good athlete. He did mention the fact that Jake Camarda can sit there and run a 4.56, and most punters, they don't go out there at the combine and run. This kid ran a 4.56, which is probably faster than KJ Britt. So he could do kickoffs and probably zoom down the field faster than Britt to make the tackle. I'm just kidding. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But it does open up a couple of wrinkles, because as the holder now, he is going to be replacing Bradley Pinion as the kickoff guy, as the punter, of course, and also the holder. Matt he kind of opened the door a little bit with his running ability. He said he can throw the ball. We might see some fakes.
That's what stood out to me. He's like, he's a good passer too. He could throw the ball. I'm like, all right, he's just giving away that the Bucs are going to run some fake plays this year, which reminded me that the Bucs are pretty good at stopping fake plays too.
Yes.
Scotty Miller had a sack this year.
That's right.
It recorded as a sack because of it. But yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is the kick return job is wide open. Jalen Darden, he wants to see him have another look. But the interesting thing is he talked about Zion McCollum, and we talked about this on the Pewter Report draft show when he was drafted, becoming a gunner. That makes sense, right? He's runs a 4.33 and is a good tackler and can fly down the field and get the ball. But they're going to give him a look as a return guy with that speed to see if I think he did it at Sam Houston State, but you don't know if you can do something or not unless you try. So that's what the OTAs, the mini camps are for. That's what training camp is for.
Yeah,
to see, and I think they're going to have a kind of a wide open return job, punt and kick return, to really beef up the return game this year.
And on top of that too, Keith Armstrong mentioned that he wanted to see Rashad White as a gunner as well too. I thought that was interesting because I don't think he did that too much in college. But I just like the fact that it's going to be he said he likes Jalen Darden and he wants to get more of a look at him.
Right.
But again, kind of like with Mike Edwards, it's his job, but he's still got to earn it. I see that with Jalen Darden too. I'm not saying it's Jalen Darden's job, but I like that everyone's going to have an opportunity. Maybe Scotty Miller will finally get to return punts. I highly doubt it, but
I was making a pitch for Scotty Miller being a gunner because he forced 2 fumbles in limited duties. I wanted to remind Coach about that. I mean,
Coach put out the 2. He put out the Antoine Winfield peace sign / Scotty Miller fumbles, forced fumbles.
That's true. Last question here. Booski 1300. Can you guys answer? Do you believe Darden deserves the job? No. It should be an open competition. I didn't see anything last year that made me believe that he deserves the job. He has to go out and earn the job.
Exactly. He doesn't deserve it, but if he earns it, all the power to him, all the credit to him.
Yep.
And I think he can win it too. He's got to stay upright. He can't keep falling.
Totally agree. We got another packed show tomorrow. We're going to be back at 4 o'clock Eastern time talking about the NFC South, looking at their drafts in depth while we're wrapping up draft week here. We're going to go over the Buccaneers picks and maybe look at some matchups of who Logan Hall is going to be facing in the trenches in New Orleans, in Carolina, in Atlanta, and then look at some of the new rookies around the NFC South that the Bucs will be facing. Are there any matchup problems there? Are there any guys that are going to be thorns in the Bucs side? Are there any future Bucs killers that are now going to be in the NFC South? That's tomorrow's show at 4 o'clock Eastern. Again, presented by Celsius.
That's right. So make sure you tune in. Thank you, everyone, for watching today. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast.